Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to again have a look at encoding some graphics into binary, but today we're going to incorporate some color into our pictures. So before we look at the actual work, again, we'll quickly review the worksheet itself. So this is going to be the first page where you'll have the color charts and the explanation of what the task entails. Page 2 will be the sample that we'll be replicating in just a moment in this video. And then pages 3 and 4 will be the blank grids where you'll be able to create your two images that you'll be submitting as this piece of work. So again, the first page is the information that we'll be basically going through here. Second page is the example that we'll be replicating here in this video. And pages 3 and 4 are where you can do your work. So let's go back to page 1 and we'll zoom in so we can see it in a little bit more detail. Okay, for this task what we're doing is again bringing in color into our images. So back in 1984, the 16 color scheme came out, pre-revolutionary for its time, and the 16 colors that were available are listed in this table here. They went from black through silver, grey, red, lime, all the way through to white. Now, I'm not going to read this word for word. You're welcome to do that yourself. But basically, these 16 colours were created for a very specific reason. Essentially, the colours in the left-hand side are half tones or half brightnesses of the colours on the right. They certainly weren't just randomly chosen. And if you do a little bit of investigation on this topic around the RGB values, the red, green, blue values, you'll actually see how these colours came to be. But basically, these were the 16 colours that were available. And of course, just like previously when we did the black and white, they're represented firstly by a decimal value in this first column, which has a corresponding binary value. Now, you'll notice that the binary value uses 4 bits. So this is not a full byte yet, it's 4 bits. And those 4 bits represent the numbers 0000, which of course in decimal is 0, through to 1111, which if we convert that to decimal is 15. So one or two of you might be thinking, but hey, you said 16. Don't forget the 0 is a number. So if you count how many actual colors are here, there are 16 colors, but the number 0 is not being wasted. We're using that to represent black. Okay, so let's have a look at what we have to do. So we're going to create a set of images again that have color this time using those 16 colors that are available. And eventually we're going to get to the point of creating the binary. Now this is an important point, and we'll see this again when we do the example, but we're only using 4 bits of binary to represent each of these colors. So when we put them into the actual binary stream, we still want to work with a byte. And of course, a byte has 8 bits. So we'll actually be representing 2 pixels at a time with 1 byte of information. So the first 4 bits, if you like, will be this one here, and the next 4 will represent the next pixel. And again, we'll have 4 bits representing 1 pixel and 4 more bits representing the next pixel. So we are going to still use a full byte of information, but each byte will represent 2 pixels. And again, your task will be to create at least 2 color images, convert those eventually into a stream of binary. You're always welcome to create more, feel free to do so. If you are going to do that, I strongly encourage you to duplicate those pages before you fill them in, because of course once you fill them in, it takes a lot longer to clear them out ready for the next one. So if you'd like to duplicate the page and the tables, feel free. Let's have a look at the sample. So here is my first sample. I've created a new smiley face picture, but you can already see that by introducing color, we can have a lot more detail going on in these pictures. This is still an 8 by 8 grid. It's still the same size as the black and white pictures that we did earlier, but having access to even 16 colors means that we can do a lot more with these images. I've even chosen to fill in the background, not just to leave it white, just for a bit more color. So just like before, I'm going to go through and I'm going to fill this in. Then I'm going to come to the second table or second grid, and I'm going to work out what the color values are. So previously we just had 0 or 1, but now we have an extra step. These numbers represent the decimal number for whatever color I have. And again, in this example, I put the colors in as well, just like in the first spot, to help me make sure that I didn't make any mistakes. And then I'm going to take those numbers and again to convert those now into the binary version. So here I have my picture yet again, 8 by 8, but it's stretched out across the page a bit further so that I can actually fit 4 bits of binary for each of these pixels. And then eventually I'm going to take 2 pixels at a time and I'm going to convert those into a stream of binary. So I'm going to take these first 2 here, and they would be represented down the bottom here by this first byte of binary. So I'll end up having 2 rows per single row of binary down here. So I end up with 4 rows of binary instead of 8, because each of these pixels, 2 of them make up one of these bytes. And that's basically the task that you will be doing. So through the magic of editing, in just a second, you're going to see this same situation where we're going to go ahead and do this all for ourselves. Okay, let's begin our tutorial. As always, the first thing we should really be doing is putting our details into the worksheet. This particular one is set up in the header. So if I double click on that area, I will have the header open now. We can see that, and I can put my name in here. Again, I might need to delete some of those extra blanks to keep it sort of lined up. My class, so that's going to be what we have on our timetable. So I'm going to pretend I'm in group G today. And then my student number. So that's what you log into the computer with. So it'd be something like 2, 3, 4, and then some other numbers. Again, might need to just delete a few blank lines just to make everything fit. Once you've got that in there, of course, double click anywhere else, and that's now on that page. And of course, being part of the header, it's on every other page. That has nothing to do with the actual task, but it's important that we fill these things out properly. Okay, first thing I'm going to need to really do is decide what I want to draw. So again, I'm going to draw another version of that happy face. So I'm going to come into here and I'm going to put in the name of whatever it is I'm going to call it. So let's call this happy face 2. Okay. I'm then going to take this first grid, this 8 by 8 grid on the left hand side, and I'm going to draw my picture in. So again, I'm going to do that by filling in each of these little squares. And because this is actually a table, I can just select squares and again use the fill tool up the top here to choose and fill in this square. Now it's important that when you are choosing colors that you're only using colors from the 16 table. Okay, so you might have to do a little bit of approximation to get the best ones, but try to only use those colors. It just means that when you hand this in, if you use some other random color like a really light green or something, it's not going to match up with what I see, and I might actually end up marking it as incorrect. So I'm going to start by drawing my smiley face. So the first cell I've got is going to be that nice bright yellow. So we'll grab that yellow here, and it's that one there. And that actually goes across these 3 cells as well. So I'm just going to fill that in there. And then I've got it goes across these 2 here, and then it went across those here, and it went down and does the same thing down to the bottom. So I'm just going to quickly fill this in. Okay, now I've got my happy face. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some bigger eyes in, I guess. I'll see if I can fit those in. And I'm going to do a straight across mouth instead. All right, so we'll go with that. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do small eyes again, but I'll do blue eyes. So I'm going to have one blue eye here. So again, I'm going to use that sort of darker blue that was available. Okay, and I'm going to do a slightly different smiley mouth, but I'm still going to do that in a red. So I'll take my bright red, and I'm going to have 2 lines across here and 1 there to give that smile look. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the corner areas that we have here with a color, and that color is going to be green. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Undo. Should be these areas here. So we're just coloring in all of these spaces with the appropriate colors from our table. Okay, now that I have created my image, I'm going to get the next grid set up, and that's going to be where I put the decimal number that represents each of these colors. So you don't technically have to copy the colors themselves over, but I do find it really helps. Even when we did the black and white, it really helps to know that I'm putting the numbers in the right spot. So to bring the colors across, you're basically going to have to replicate what you've just done in the first grid in the second grid. You can try copying and pasting the table, but you'll probably run into some issues with things jumping around the place. Feel free to try that if you like, but in the end it may be quicker just to fill them in. I'm going to do that now and do it very, very quickly, probably on fast forward. Okay, now I've got my duplicate. For those of you who are paying attention, you might have noticed what I started with is just filling the whole thing in yellow, since that's the primary color or the main color being used. And then I fixed up the corners and other areas. That just saved me doing a lot of extra clicks for all this yellow space. So if you do have a predominant color or an area that's predominantly one color, it might be quicker just to bulk fill that area and then make some adjustments. Just a little bit of advice. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to color or work out what each of the decimal values for these colors is and write them into these squares. So that's where I'm going to need my table. So if I quickly scroll up and I have a look at my table, the green that I'm using, this darker green, has a decimal value of 2. Yellow has a decimal of 11, red is 9, and of course black is 0. So green is 2, 11, 9, and 0. So I come back down. Green is 2. Yellow is 11. Red was 9. And blue. Sorry, I didn't mean to get black. I need blue. So blue is 12. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just putting one of each color in, so I've got the numbers written down. I'm also going to quickly highlight this whole table. I'm going to change the font color not to be automatic, but to be black so that they all stand out a bit better. I've also got a highlight on for some reason, so we'll just turn that off as well. So we'll highlight all the fields and turn off that highlighter. Not sure why that was on. So now that I've got one of each color, it's just a case of filling in the rest. So everywhere that I've got a green, I'm going to put a 2. Everywhere that I've got yellow, I'm going to put 11. Everywhere I've got that blue, I'm going to put 12. And everywhere I've got red, I'm going to put 9. So again, I'm just going to do this quickly in fast forward for you. Okay, and there we have the finished numbers. So again, everywhere that was the green, I've got a number 2 because green is decimal 2. 11s represent all the yellow, 12s represent the blues, 9 represents the red. So my next step is to come down here to the stretched grid. And again, I'm going to start by putting the colors in. And then I'm going to take each of these decimal numbers and put the binary equivalent instead. So I'm going to start quickly by putting all these colors in again. Okay, so now I have my image again stretched out. And for those of you watching, you might have seen that I made a little mistake with the mouth. I went too low, so it is very important that you are checking your image against the one you've already drawn. So what I saw is that I only had one line of yellow between the eye and the mouth. But when I started doing it, I went down too far down here. so I had to go and fix that up. So it is always important to check back, make sure you're doing things properly. Okay, in a similar way to how we did these decimal numbers, I now need to put the binary, the 4 bits of binary that represent each of these. So again, I can do this in a few ways. I usually, again, like I did up here, I'll do one of each color that I'm using to make sure I've got the right binary shown, and then it's a case of just filling in the rest. If you're okay with your binary, you might be able to just work out the numbers yourself as you go, or you might need to go back to your table and look at what the binary values are. Okay, either way is perfectly fine so long as you end up with the right value. So this green is the value 2, and using 4 bits of binary, that would be 0010. Okay, so I'm just going to do one of those. We know that 11 is the decimal number for the yellow. That's going to be 1011, 8, a 2, and a 1, making 11. For the red, we have 9, which of course is going to be 1001. And lastly, we have the blue, which is 12, which is going to be 1100. Okay, and again, like before, I'm just going to quickly highlight this whole table, and I'm going to make sure I don't have this highlighter turned on for some reason, and I'm also going to make sure all my text is black just to stand out a bit better, and that way it'll be a little bit clearer when I do all this work. That's a bit better. So again, I've now got each of the 4 colors I'm using. You might have more than 4, depending on what you've chosen to draw, but I'm now just going to fill in all these spaces just like before, but instead of with a decimal value, I'm now going to do this binary. And I'll most likely do that by copying and pasting it as many times as I need to. So again, I'll just do that now in fast forward. And that's completed now. So again, I have the binary equivalent of 2 in each of these green spots all the way around. I have the binary equivalent of 11 in all the yellows. I have the binary equivalent of 9 in the reds, and I have the binary equivalent of 12 for the 2 blue eyes. So far we have drawn our picture up here. We have then worked out what the decimal values are for each of those colors from our table on page 1, and then we have worked out what the binary version for each of those decimal numbers is from our table on page 1. The last part to complete this task is to write out our stream of binary. So we need to basically write 2 colors or 2 pixels worth of binary for each byte. So remember, these first 2 will be a byte, then these next 2 will be a byte, 3rd byte, 4th byte, and then we'll go to row 2, 5th byte, 6th byte, 7th byte, 8th byte. Then we will go to a new row of binary. Okay, so we'll end up with 4 rows of binary, each row representing 2 rows of the pixels. So I'm about to transfer this binary into the box for the streamer binary, and I find it usually easier just to type it out. You can copy and paste it, but you'll have to do paste special to remove formatting. Then you'll have to adjust a whole lot of spacings and so forth. So I still find it just a little bit easier just to type it out. One thing on my screen, and again it might be on yours as well, when I click into the box provided, unfortunately I'm missing some of the lines, the first line of the picture, and it's very easy to make a mistake. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to zoom out a little bit just to make sure that I can see what I want on the screen. So I've got the whole picture as well as the space for the box. So in my case, I'm now at about 150% zoom. Again, it depends on what your screen size is. You may or may not need to zoom in. Yeah, I think about 150 for me is right. So here I can see the first line, so I've definitely got what I want. So I'm just literally going to start typing them in, remembering that before I press enter in this box to go to the second line, I'm actually going to fill 2 full lines of pixels. 2 pixels at a time to make up a byte, and in between each byte I will put a space before I do the next byte. Okay, so again I'll do that in a little bit fast forward, so you'll be able to see it, but hopefully it'll be a bit quicker than what it actually takes me to do. Okay, we now have all our binary written out. So this first string of binary, 8 bytes, represents the first 2 rows of pixels. The second string of binary represents the third and fourth row of pixels. The third, the next 2, and the last 2. Again, looking at this binary, you can't tell what it is. It is very important that you put in your spaces between bytes, but just take your time, type it out carefully, and you should be correct. What I will be doing when you hand this in is I'll be copying this string of binary, this stream, and I'll be pasting into a special program, and I will actually then see this image appear on my screen with the correct colors. And that's how I will know that you have in fact got your binary right. If you make mistakes, I'll still get an image, but it will be some random colors, and it just won't come out right. So that's how I will know that you've actually taken the time, done it carefully, and been able to do this for yourself. So one last time, it's pretty straightforward. It just takes a bit of care. Draw up your pictures, only use the 16 colors available. From the table, find what their decimal values are. Again, I do encourage you to put the colors in each time to help you know what you're doing. Then find the binary number for each of those colors, and then take 2 pixels at a time to turn it into a byte down here at the bottom. So that's 1 byte representing these first 2 pixels, next 2 pixels represented by the next byte, and so forth. So you end up with 4 lines of 8 bytes each, which represents this entire picture. Save regularly, submit when you're done on Schoolbox, and I shall mark them as soon as I can.